This is not an exit. American Psycho is the story of Patrick Bateman, a narcissistic yet deeply insecure Wall Street investment banker who lives a secret life as a serial killer. Or does he? It's hard to tell. This novel is a stream of consciousness effort that is often confusing and honestly kind of boring. Which is the entire point of the book, really. While Bret Easton Ellis didn't set out to write a book that's the grand shaming of yuppie culture, that's what this book accomplishes. All of these rich white dudes are exactly the same. Vain, absolutely batshit nobodies with nothing better to do than to treat all aspects of life as currency. Sounds pretty prescient given the current state of American politics right now. But really, America has always been like this. Like, this book was published in 1991, for God's sake. And when this book was published, it was incredibly controversial due to its graphic depictions of intense violence and assaults of various kinds. Some countries have even taken it to ridiculous lengths as to selling the book in shrink wrap. All I have to say to the person who made that particular decision is that there are way worse books out there. The pearl clutching was very, very real. American Psycho wasn't concocted out of a want to write about a Wall Street serial killer. I'll paraphrase what Ellis said in a 2010 interview with the Oregonian. Patrick Bateman was born out of Ellis living in a very similar empty consumerist state. He played into capitalism's deception of, oh, if you buy this thing, it'll make you feel very good about yourself. And found out after amassing all of this stuff that just wasn't true and only made him feel worse. He didn't want to admit that when the book was first published out of fear given the intense reactions from critics and scholars. Because of this, the book is naturally a satire on consumerist culture. Bateman spends a bulk of the novel going to clubs, bars, restaurants, anything that's high scale and super expensive. And with him is his coterie of rich, eccentric assholes, and all they do is talk about absolutely fucking nothing. They trade fashion advice, engage in very misogynistic discussions about their hard body waitresses. By the way, if there was a drinking game based on how many times the word hard body is in this book, you would probably be dead before you even made it a quarter of the way through. Bateman also spends a lot of time critiquing pop music. There are whole chapters dedicated to how good Whitney Houston and, of course, Huey Lewis and the News are. Those chapters are typically placed after scenes of horrific rapes, tortures, cannibalism, any taboo subject you can think of, really. There's even a little bit of necrophilia sprinkled in there for a taste. All of this serves the purpose of showing the reader that while Bateman is enacting all of these despicable acts, they mean absolutely nothing to him. It's business as usual. It all gets marginally worse after Bateman kills his colleague Paul Owen, who's handling the mysterious Fisher account. We never find out what the Fisher account is, by the way, but it's the subject of Bateman's jealousy towards Paul. After killing him, Bateman effectively takes over Paul's apartment and uses it as a sort of base of operations for future murders. This is also where we start noticing more and more that Bateman's grasp on reality is slipping. There were some clues before, but after disposing of Paul, it's exacerbated to an exponential degree. He actually does confess to his crimes many times to his friends, but they never take him seriously because Bateman's always talking about serial killers and stuff of that ilk. It all comes to a head when the novel takes an unexpected turn into the third person rather than first. Patrick kills several random people on the street and then gets chased by the police into his office building. In his office, he cowers behind his desk and sees that a SWAT team and a helicopter have been dispatched. He then has a nervous breakdown and calls his attorney, confessing everything that he's done. Later, after finding out that Paul Owen's apartment has been cleaned up and absolutely destroyed with perfume to cover up the smell of decay and rot, Patrick meets with his attorney, who mistakes him for someone else and says that he's heard the message that Bateman left on his machine, but he doesn't believe a single lick of it because Bateman is a kiss-ass and a coward. During this talk, it's also revealed that Paul Owen is actually still alive. Bateman's attorney had dinner with him in London just 10 days ago. This book left me feeling empty. It is an entirely unstable, unreliable account from someone who clearly doesn't think of themselves as a person. He says that there is no Patrick Bateman, only some entity, a facade of a person feigning life. Patrick Bateman is nothing. The world he lives in is nothing. This story is nothing. That may work for some people, but for me, it left me more confused than anything. I really cannot tell if I like this book or I hate it. It's likely somewhere in the middle. I've seen people praise this book's black sense of humor, and I can definitely see that. Some of the kills are so over the top and unrealistic and just plain weird that you can't help but to chuckle and say to yourself, what the fuck just happened? Think of like the kill scenes in the Terrifier films. I do think some people have blown this book's themes way out of proportion. Honestly, with a 2025 lens, it's hardly shocking anymore. Like I stated before, there are absolutely more disgusting books out there than this one, and also the Terrifier movies exist. Granted, the Terrifier movies don't do necrophilia and rape in them, but still. It's a bleak satire of rich white assholes who can get away with doing whatever the fuck they want because money is power. And because of that point, I do think some of the scholars are tripping over their loafers, kissing the ground that this book walks on, and are being completely hyperbolic about it. What this book does exceedingly well is make you question reality itself as it's collapsing before Patrick Bateman's eyes. I do recommend reading this book, but be forewarned that it's not for the faint of heart. At all. As a lifetime gore junkie, there were sections of this book that I had to just sort of speed read in order to keep myself from feeling nauseous. And also, for the love of God, utilize doesthedogdie.com for any potential triggers. And that's gonna do it for my review of American Psycho. Thank you guys so very much for watching the video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this one, please consider subscribing. And until then, I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.